What if everything in your life, every failure, every triumph, every turning point, came down to a single decision? Not where you live, not what you do, not even who you love, but a quiet, almost invisible decision. The one you've been making every day without even knowing it. Philosophers, mystics, and sages have written about it. Modern psychology proves it. And your soul? It's been trying to show you this truth since the beginning. Because the most important decision you'll ever make is how you see the world. Whether life is something that happens to you, or something that happens through you. Whether you are a victim of your past, or the author of what comes next. It's not about toxic positivity or blind optimism. It's about waking up and realizing you're not stuck. You're simply unaware of your power. Most people never make this decision consciously. They just inherit their lens. They borrow their beliefs. And they spend their lives reacting to a world they never chose to understand. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. This video is about that decision. The one that changes everything. Not overnight, but forever. Let's begin. The unseen choice that shapes your life. We often believe that our lives are shaped by major moments. A career move, a heartbreak, a windfall. But the truth? Your life is shaped more by perspective than by events. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms. To choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances." This isn't a feel-good quote, it's a radical reframe. The Stoics echoed this centuries before. Epictetus taught that we don't control what happens, but we do control how we interpret it. That's the decision most people miss. Not whether life is good or bad, but whether we meet it with resistance or responsibility. Modern psychology calls this cognitive framing. It's how your brain gives meaning to what happens. And that meaning drives your emotions, your habits, your destiny. Two people can face the same setback. One grows, the other shrinks. What's the difference? The frame, the meaning, the lens through which the event is experienced. Most of us inherit our lens from childhood trauma, social conditioning, or fear. But what if we could choose differently? What if the most powerful act of rebellion in a chaotic world wasn't fighting for control, but changing your perception? Because the moment you realize you have a say in the story, you stop being a character and start becoming the author. The lens of fear versus the lens of power. There are two lenses through which we interpret the world, fear or power, and the one you default to will shape everything. When you see life through the lens of fear, you become reactive. Every challenge feels like a threat. Every mistake becomes shame. Every silence becomes rejection. Fear convinces you that life is happening to you, and that you are helpless in the face of it. You'll overthink, overprepare, overcompensate, or worse, you'll withdraw from life altogether. But when you learn to see through the lens of power, everything changes. Suddenly pain becomes a teacher, setbacks become direction, doubt becomes a doorway. You begin to understand what the Stoics meant when they said, "It's not things that disturb us, but our opinions about things." Epictetus. Power doesn't mean force. It means agency. It means reclaiming your response. It means saying, "I can't control what happened, but I can choose what it means." Spiritual traditions teach this too. In Hinduism, the concept of Maya suggests that the world is not as it appears, that our perceptions are shaped by illusion. But liberation comes from seeing clearly. Modern neuroscience supports this. Your thoughts literally rewire your brain. This is called neuroplasticity, and your perspective is part of what shapes that wiring. So when you shift your frame from fear to power, you're not just changing your mind, you're changing your life. And that change begins not with doing, but with seeing. Why most people never see the decision they're making? Here's the hard truth. Most people go their entire lives without realizing that they've already made the most important decision by not making it. They inherited their worldview, adopted their beliefs, absorbed the fears of those around them, and called it reality. As children, we were wired for safety. So we learned early, who am I allowed to be? What gets me love? What gets me hurt? And from those answers, we began to build a lens, one shaped more by survival than by truth. By the time we're adults, that lens becomes nearly invisible. We assume it's the world that's broken, not our frame of it. Plato described this in his allegory of the cave. People trapped in darkness since birth, watching shadows on the wall, believing the shadows are real, because it's all they've ever known. To wake up is terrifying. To leave the cave, to challenge the frame, requires the courage to question everything. The unexamined life is not worth living. Socrates. But the examined life? It costs everything you weren't meant to carry anyway. Modern behavioral psychology echoes this idea. We live by scripts, subconscious patterns from childhood. Until we bring them into awareness, they run the show. So no, you are not weak. You are conditioned. And the first act of power is to pause, to ask, is the lens I'm looking through one I chose, or one that was handed to me? Because freedom doesn't start with a new life. It starts with a new way of seeing. The power of reframing pain. Pain is inevitable, but the meaning we give it, that's the real difference between suffering and transformation. Most of us don't realize, pain doesn't just break us, it frames us. We attach meaning to pain, and then live by the story that meaning creates. I failed. I'm not enough. Life is unfair. It's always been like this, and it always will be. But what if pain is not punishment? What if pain is the call that wakes us? What if it's the only language the soul has left when we've stopped listening? The Stoics didn't resist pain. They studied it. They welcomed it as the forge of character. Seneca wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." Buddhism teaches something similar. Suffering is part of life, but clinging to it is optional. When we release resistance, we make space for wisdom. Even trauma research confirms this. Post-traumatic growth is real. Many people who endure suffering report deeper purpose, stronger relationships, and a transformed sense of self, but only when they find new meaning in what they endured. This is the power of reframing. Not denial, not delusion, but a conscious decision to ask, what else could this mean? That question turns pain into presence. It gives suffering a seat at the table, not as a tyrant, but as a teacher, because the most important decision you'll ever make might not be what happened to you, but what you decide it meant. The stories we live and how to rewrite them. Human beings are meaning makers. We don't just experience life, we narrate it. And those narratives, they shape everything. Your story isn't just a memory. It's your lens. It's how you predict what will happen next. And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Psychologists call this narrative identity. The internal story you tell about who you are, why your life is the way it is, and what's possible for you. Here's the catch. Most of these stories were written when we were too young to question their truth. You failed once, so you wrote, "I'm not capable." You were abandoned, so you wrote, "People always leave." You were punished for being joyful, so you wrote, "My light is dangerous." But the most powerful act of healing? It's becoming the editor of your own myth. This isn't toxic positivity. It's cognitive liberation. When Marcus Aurelius wrote his Meditations, he was rewriting his inner world, even as the outer world fell apart. He framed betrayal as a lesson, suffering as a sharpening, power as responsibility. Modern therapies like CBT and narrative therapy are built on this exact principle. If you can change the story, you can change the experience and the outcome. So ask yourself, what story am I living? Who wrote it? And do I still believe it? Because the most important decision isn't just to change your life, it's to change the narrator. When you choose to see differently, you become different. The daily practice of choosing your lens. The decision to choose your lens, to live through the frame of power instead of fear, is not a one-time revelation. It's a daily ritual. Because the world will keep trying to hand you a narrative. News headlines, social media, unhealed people projecting their pain, and your own inner voice echoing old wounds. The choice isn't just made once, it's made every moment. And the most transformative people you'll ever meet? They've made a habit of it. The Stoics began their mornings with reflection. What adversity might I face today? What will I need to remember when the storm hits? They were not surprised by difficulty. They prepared their lens before the world handed them one. In Buddhism, there's the practice of right view, seeing reality as it is, not through illusion, not through craving, not through fear. Modern neuroscience supports this. Gratitude journaling, mindful breathing, reframing, they don't just feel good. They rewire your prefrontal cortex. They shift you from reactive survival mode to conscious choice. This is spiritual hygiene, mental fitness, emotional sovereignty, and it's simple. Every day ask yourself, what lens am I choosing right now? What meaning am I giving to this? Is this lens helping me grow or keeping me stuck? You can't always change the world, but you can curate your lens. And when you change your lens, you don't just see life differently. Life responds differently. Seeing clearly, living freely. Clarity is freedom, not because it makes life easy, but because it makes you awake. When you choose your lens deliberately, you're no longer at the mercy of circumstances. You no longer inherit meaning, you make it. That's what ancient wisdom has always pointed toward. The Stoics called it ataraxia, a state of inner stillness and unshakable peace, not because life is gentle, but because your mind is strong. In Taoism, this is wu wei, effortless action, arising from harmony with the flow of life. Even in Christianity, we find this power of perception. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. These aren't vague spiritual slogans. They're radical acts of inner freedom. Because when your lens is clear, you stop confusing your thoughts with truth. You stop reacting and start responding. You stop blaming and start building. You start to see that most of your suffering wasn't from life itself, but from the story you attach to it. This doesn't mean you won't feel pain, but it does mean you'll stop turning pain into identity. You'll learn to let it pass through instead of letting it define you. The decision to choose your lens consciously, daily, is the most important decision you'll ever make. It is the quiet revolution that changes everything. Because perception isn't passive, it's an act of creation. And once you reclaim that power, you don't just live life, you see it. And finally, you're free. Reflection. So much of our suffering is borrowed from old stories, broken perceptions, and inherited beliefs we never chose. But the moment you awaken to the power of perception, you reclaim the authorship of your life. This is your reminder. You are not your past. You are not your pain. You are not even your thoughts. You are the one who sees. And you are free to choose a lens that serves your growth, your healing, and your joy. The world will try to make this decision for you with noise, fear, distraction. But silence is a rebellion. Reflection is a weapon. Clarity is your power. So take a breath. Choose your lens. Frame your life with courage, with wisdom, with presence. Because the most important decision you'll ever make is not out there in the world. It's right here, in how you choose to see it. If this video opened something in you, a perspective, a possibility, a pause, don't let the moment fade. Like this video to let the algorithm know wisdom still matters. Subscribe to LuminousSoul to explore deeper truths that nourish the soul. Comment below, what lens are you choosing now? Your journey is sacred. Let's walk it consciously, courageously, together.